Wednesday, November 28th, 2018, 7 p.m. of the Charter Review Committee at the Lunenburg High School Collaborative Room. We changed locations last week being Thanksgiving week. The Conservation Commission moved, and that broke the area that we were going to normally be, so that's why we're here at the school. Is there any comment from the public?
I'll make one. I just wanted to thank you again, Bob. I already did at the selectmen's meeting, but I like serving on Charter Review. You're a good chair. I like how you run a meeting, so hopefully I'll take all that and channel it. And I was saying earlier that I would be happy to rejoin the Charter Review Committee, but I'm kind of a little nervous taking your place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yeah. So previously we sent out the, just before last meeting, we had the September 12th meeting minutes. Any comments or questions on those? Motion to approve those?
Move to approve.
Are those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And the October 24th are still in process. So those will be sent out for the next meeting. First item is to meet with the Cemetery Commission. You want to come up to the table?
I'm Bill Tyler, Cemetery Commission. Good evening. Bob, I want to thank you too for your service in the town. You'll be missed.
Thank you.
First thing, I have a question concerning issues going forward. In other words, will there be other opportunities to make changes to, or suggestions what we want to change? In other words, this isn't the final.
That's correct. This is not the final. This is, we're doing individual meetings with people and boards and committees as needed, and we are planning to have 2 separate public hearings before we release the final draft for time.
Now, is a public hearing one of them December 12th?
Did we?
I probably, after our last meeting, we had talked about December 12th, and I emailed the town moderator and the Cemetery Commission to say that those were possible public forums.
I mean, it's not a bad thing to have the first one, because we already gave the current draft that's in place is on the town website, as well as the report that was given at the special town meeting. So that certainly, depending on what the committee wants to do, we're going to be talking about scheduling, but that could very well be.
So there might be like a public meeting and then another round of meetings and then another
public hearing as well.
Because there's some portions we're still working on. We have discussed it completely. We have a couple that we've worked on, but not totally.
Okay.
More work to do on. The first issue, the first item was discussed at the last round of commission meeting. That was adding the word soul under Cemetery Commission. Section 3-5, powers and duties. It was add the word sole after. It was agreed the Board of Cemetery Commissioners have the sole responsibility, which mimics the Mass General laws. I don't recall anybody having any issues with that particular change. I think everybody was on board with it. It's a small change, but it just mimics the general laws.
And to let you know, that is currently shown as purple in our color scheme. It means that's part of a typographical correction, legal compliance, and not controversial changes. So that's what that one is at this point.
That section there, we may have some other additions to it. We're not totally sure yet. The other one is section 4-2, powers and duties. Town manager. 4.2i. It reads, to have full jurisdiction over the rental and use of all town facilities and property, except property under the control of the school committee, the library trustees, and the Conservation Commission, and shall be responsible for the maintenance and repair of all town buildings and facilities placed under his control by this charter, bylaw, vote of the town, or otherwise. We would like the cemetery commission added into that verbiage as far as the buildings not under control. Some of you may or may not know, we're in the process of constructing a new building on Holman Street to replace the past building. This is a self-funded project. The town isn't paying for it. There's no tax involved, and it's all self-funded. So we kind of feel we'd like to have control over the building since we're paying for it. The use of it, we want to have the control of it. So that would be my addition, would be adding the cemetery commission to the school committee and library trustees and the conservation committee, adding also the cemetery commission. That's it right now.
Okay. Questions or comments from the members?
Just that the version I'm looking at, the library trustees came out in one of our edits, so that it really currently reads all town facilities and property except property under control of the school committee and the conservation commission.
Yeah.
And I believe that's because they're the only two that buy, I don't know whether it's MGL or whatever, that have their own stake in owning property, separate and apart from town property.
Okay. Other comments or questions?
Well, I would just, along the same line, I would ask what's the rationale for requesting a change? Is something not working right, or?
Well, no, the building isn't even constructed yet, and it's going to be for storage and future use.
Right.
The town's growing, as everybody knows, and there's a possibility we'll, buying some equipment for it, some other things, and we don't want to have it. We want to make sure that we're in control of the building and not having some, so we want to put this in here, we want to use this for this, we want to use it for that.
Right.
It just seems reasonable to me if we're paying for the building, that we should have control over it. That's basically the impetus behind it.
And the funds would be set aside within your budget, as you say, it would be self-sustaining.
Right, for maintenance, or, obviously, wouldn't need any maintenance, for a long time, but, when the time comes, we would feel more comfortable probably being responsible for the maintenance if we had to be, It's not a reflection on anybody, but, sometimes these older buildings in town weren't taken care of, and we want to make sure that we stay on top of these buildings. It's our building, and if it needs something, we want to be able to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there wouldn't be any issues around procurement, because any of the procurement would still be going through the town.
Procurement like?
The state procurement requirements.
Basically, any kind of I'm going to assume that it would still fall under the municipal property still, or it's not municipal property because
I guess it would be.
It's still municipal property.
But it's on town land. I guess it would be.
I guess it would be possible to get the opinion of the town manager on that. That would be good. I don't know that there's just because she is a procurement officer for the town, so I don't, because basically any building or...
I can add, any town building, municipal, school, it all falls subject to procurement.
Okay, so basically, but as a cemetery commission having responsibility for the building,
It would still have to follow procurement procedures.
okay. Right, but there's no conflict otherwise.
The chief procurement officer makes sure everything complies with procurement law.
Yeah.
So you still have to pass that muster.
So if I hear you correctly, even if they had control, they'd still have to go through the regular procurement process.
The cemetery funds, I'm assuming when people purchase lots and all that, does that go into a town account or the cemetery account?
It goes into the cemetery account called sale of lots.
Is that the rotating,
Yeah.
I don't know the lingo, rotating account?
Yes.
And is that the account you use for
And that's
maintenance
what
and all?
our yearly appropriation from town meetings from that sale of lots.
Right,
account.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's still...
It's a revolving fund.
That's what I was looking
Yeah, it's still considered town funds, but under the control of the cemetery commission.
Got it. I just wanted to verify.
The other thing, just a point of reference, because I was not here when the previous charter, when the charter first was adopted, part of the thing was the attempt to do was try to do what you talked about, is try to centralize maintenance of buildings so that we didn't end up having the issues that we've had with some of the buildings that didn't get maintained. So that's why some of this has been that you've got the maintenance and repair under the town manager, and there was a provision in the library section that it was maintained by the library unless it was decided to turn it over to the town manager, that type of thing. And that one actually had been done, and we are reflecting that change in this part. So the other thing would be just having a centralized process for maintenance of town buildings to make sure that that gets taken down. That was the theory, so. So we will consider that during the...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd say, I think this is more about private use for the cemetery than it is about maintenance of the building. The history, since the DPW was formulated, was that cemetery equipment, it was built for cemetery equipment. It's a shared resource, which is the spirit of the bylaw that was voted on at town meeting. And, I see that we're going to maintain it. I understand that, and I think that's a positive thing, but I think the thing that gets lost in here, or the thing that may be shaded, is control. And I think it's quite clear after storing equipment, even in the old park building, that seasonal equipment, your old lawnmower, in different buildings and everything, and I know this needs some work with other members of your commission, so would it be your position then that this would not be a shared resource for storage?
I would think it would be a resource for the cemetery.
But it wouldn't be a shared resources for the other divisions within the DPW?
I wouldn't think so, no.
No. So that's really what you're getting at here.
Right, because I
would say.
realize that
You want to build a building, you want to have it for yourself, where you've shared the space with the DPW for years. Now you want to have your own space, and should the rare instance arise where we might need some winter storage, I don't know if we would or not, you wouldn't allow that.
well, I mean, like I say, we haven't gotten into that many discussions.
Is that, but for your position here right now, is that a yes or
Well,
no?
it's just that, I mean, it's not going to be any huge building. I mean, it's not, you can't...
Not the point,
We just
just
don't
looking
want-
for an answer to the question. Do you foresee this as being a shared resource in the spirit of the shared resources of the Department of Public Works, or do you see this as a thing that we're going to keep for ourselves as the Cemetery Commission?
I would say we keep it for ourselves.
Yeah, well, just for the record, I think that goes against the whole theory of the DPW. You would like to share, and you have been sharing, and I think that's great. That's the whole spirit of it. But now that if you have a resource, sharing stops if necessary. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be necessary, but if we put into the charter that this comes under the control of the Cemetery Commission, and under the guise of maintenance, it's not maintenance. It's you want the space for what you want the space, and nobody else in the department is
Well,
going
the
to
thing
do
is, I
it.
realize at some point, the West Street building's going to go away, and a lot of things in there, we don't want them stuck in our building, basically.
You what?
We don't want them all, conglomerated into this building that we're
Right.
going to build.
But it's okay for your stuff to be in the park building now, and every winter for the last 18 years.
I don't know, I haven't been on that long to you can answer that question, how much is it?
Well, yeah, well, I think you maybe should know that the history if you're going to propose the future. And I don't see it in the spirit of sharing. The history, which I've been wanting to share with you specifically, and inviting you 4 times to the office, you haven't come, yet you sit in this meeting and want to have a building without knowing the history of where cemetery equipment has been for the last 18 or 19 years. And if that's the way it's going to be, and that's the way the people want it, that's fine. But you've used the space, and even the West Street space, in the Chase Road space, and now you're putting up a building, which I think is a great idea. But should the need arise, no, we're going to tell you right now that you're not welcome there. And I just want to know if that's the spirit of your change.
Well, we're getting off topic here a little bit.
No,
This is just
is that the spirit of your change? Are there other things within the DPW of which you work hard?
My point was that if we're paying for the building, we should have control over it. That was it. We should have control over what happens to the building, that's all.
Well,
So
that's-
one of the things that I think that this is an item that needs additional discussion, and I would charge the cemetery commissioners to talk with the town manager and the DPW director, because, for instance, the library was built with private funds, fundraising, but that is now being maintained by the DPW, because that's the way it made sense to have centralized maintenance of the building. Now, the town manager does not tell the library what is going to go in that building, so that's a little different. But the park department property is under the jurisdiction of the DPW. Cemetery maintenance is under the DPW. Part of that was done in order to consolidate maintenance of town facilities in order to have the ability that cemetery workers in the wintertime might be able to plow, park people could plow, other people could then help mow and other stuff like that, the flexibility and stuff like that. So I know that that's been some of the discussion regarding the cemetery as far as what you want to have for the final language. I think this building discussion relates to that part, so I would charge everybody to talk more and so that we can actually look at whether we as the commission would want to recommend this change.
A quick comment I had, I believe Mass General Law has been updated so agricultural commissions can take custody of property as well, similar to conservation. And so
That'd be something to think
I don't think they're in a position to do that. I don't know that they have an enterprise fund or anything set up to really handle any of that, but
So right now, with the current language, it still is under the auspices of the town manager. And what happens with the town charter is that we can change provisions of state law in the charter. So because what happens is that town meeting adopts this, then it goes to the legislature to vote as a special act, and everything in this, if it's in conflict with state law, assuming that the Attorney General approves it, becomes the law of the town.
okay.
So we'll put a note that in the minutes to consider the Agricultural Commission owning property. I know that as the selectmen started talking about whether we would have them be in charge of the town properties that are hayed, and maybe we'd have them oversee instead of the Board of Selectmen, but it hadn't gone any further than that. So as we started the discussion, there will be several opportunities to have additional discussions, and we are looking at the May town meeting for adoption of this. So we have 2 public hearings and additional conversations between them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. So we have another agenda item called Meet with Other Committees or Town Officials. I know the Park Department was exploring moving to 5 members instead of 3, but I don't know if they actually took any action at any meeting, and there's been no communication other than a verbal discussion on that part. And I don't know the reasoning of that. Anything from the town manager that you want to talk about? One of the things that we're not going to get done tonight, but we have on our agenda, is the appointment process timeline. As far as making sure that what we have in the charter versus policies gives enough time for everybody to make appointments on a timely basis so that we don't have vacancies on the board. And then if we do have vacancies, when does it go back to the committee and other things like that. So Town Council has started doing some reviewing. I've asked him and Heather to come up with some recommended language, because he then asked, he said, do you have any recommended language? And I don't at this point. So, but it was raised here to make sure that we have enough time to do it and it's clear.
You know, I'm going to break in on that because when I spoke to Tim Murphy, the town moderator, one of his comments was filling vacancies. He said the way it's written in the charter at the moment, it says a week, 30 days. And being in the lawyer business, is at the close of 7 business days, 5 business days? Does it close at 4 o'clock? Does it close at noon? Does it count holidays? Does it count weekends? And he said that throughout this document, we need to specify that. And one suggestion was maybe in the definition section to say
What a week is.
what a week is, business days end at 4 o'clock. He suggested what is the average town hall closing time? Is it 4 o'clock, right? Yeah, I mean, but on the average. On the average.
And there's only four days in the week.
Right.
So you're right.
But, so he said that the language is vague because, and I knew we were talking about vacancies. So what's 30 days? Is it 30 days including the weekends and all that? So we really need to look at cleaning that up so that there is a definite time. So if it says it's 30 days, it's 30 business days,
Or 30 calendar days.
or is it 30 calendar days? And there might be a difference with some of these things. It might be that some things, instead of a week, you say 5 business days, but some things it's 30 calendar days.
And it's interesting because then it's business days, since we're open Monday through Thursday,
And that could change in the future too. I
Right.
mean, never, in the next 10 years,
right.
you know.
Well, and Tim mentioned that don't tie it to town hall hours because town hall hours can and do change and can change at any given time. But to define it so that a business day is from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, excluding holiday, you know, that, whatever the legal term is.
Okay. So that's a to-do list. Do you have anything else that you've...
Just a couple comments related to the last discussion on cemetery. I attended a number of cemetery commission meetings. During those meetings, I was under the impression that the building costs and a proposed backhoe was discussed at one meeting and how that funding would be requested and received from the town. So I was not under the impression it would become out of the sale of cemetery lots. It sounded to me that it would be requested upon the town to pay for those costs. So that I would maybe want more clarification on.
You mean the capital plan? You're talking about the capital
Yes.
plan?
As well as, I really would like town council's opinion, and maybe employment council as well, on if there were to be these changes, how that would impact personnel, because the one member of that department, the cemetery superintendent, he's a member of bargaining unit, which is under the DPW, which part of that job is also spent on DPW-related activities, including snow removal. So that needs to be addressed. It's going to be part of the discussion.
Okay. If that can be added to the whole discussion that I talked about, make sure we get all that information before we make any changes. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Anything else from DPW?
No, thank you.
Any other, no other committees here, please.
Well, I still have town moderator
Good.
report, so...
Why don't you do that now?
He had more to say.
Well, we met, he looked over the removal and suspension of the town manager, that section, because he had brought up that there was no provision for the town manager to have a hearing and representation. The new language, he says, looks okay.
Good.
So that's a good thing there. He was concerned, and I didn't bring the document with me, 2.2 and 3.8C could be viewed as inconsistent. It talks about the duties of the temporary town manager. We discussed it further. I believe 2.2 talks about town meeting and having to appoint someone for that specific day.
Temporary town manager or temporary moderator?
Moderator, oh, I'm sorry, I should,
I was going to say,
and 3.8, I think, is for the duties the rest of the year.
right.
But the language in there isn't as clear as it probably could be.
Actually, it looks like 2.2 is actually the assignment, that's when they would delegate for the year.
Okay, then I have it backwards. I did not bring the document with me, so I'm just going by my notes.
Okay, if he has proposed language to clarify, because we had talked about that these two sections are not as clear between
Right.
the two of them as they should be. And the theory being is that, what we had talked about is that you really should appoint a deputy moderator for the year, recognizing that that might not work for a particular meeting, and then you then trigger if you need to appoint a moderator for that meeting, we actually have it. That's the existing language at the moment.
I have to say, those two particular items don't seem to be what you do when there's no town moderator. Although at the beginning of the meeting, they both seem to, it say the same. One just refers back to 2.2, so the person who is assigned in 2.2
Right.
takes over for a vacancy.
But he was,
So I don't know if it was at the convening of a meeting, if the town moderator was not available for a particular meeting. And I know that there was some question of what would happen if there was also not a designee, that the town clerk would be the moderator until somebody at the meeting was voted to be the moderator.
And the reason they do that is so that there's always got to be a town clerk. So
right.
that theoretically, then you have that to open the meeting, and then you go to the election of the moderator if you need to.
All right. You know more about it than I do.
Well, no, I'm also just thinking, he had initially also expressed some discomfort, I think, with the whole notion of trying to assign somebody, not knowing what may come up over the
Right.
course of the year and whether somebody else would be available.
But I believe the charter says we should have someone, a substitute town moderator who is, and I think we talked about having the selectmen, right, appoint that person?
Is not appoint the deputy moderator, but if the office of town moderator is empty, then that would be appointed by the Board of Selectmen
Who?
until the next election.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But who appoints the substitute?
The deputy, if there's a deputy moderator, that deputy moderator would take over for the town
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
Who
It would
appoints?
be ratified by town meeting. The town moderator appoints.
Subject to ratification by town meeting.
Yeah.
So it has to be done at town meeting.
Right, so at the first town meeting after the election, and that's why there might be a situation
Okay.
where the town clerk has to do it,
Right.
because there's not somebody already assigned.
But we haven't done that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's where Tim was
That's
saying
right.
that, are we,
So we're finding that there's a lot of things in the charter that we weren't doing.
right, and I've been
We
telling
need
that to a
we
lot
need
of
to
people,
start-
when they look, and I go, well, we haven't been doing that, now we're discovering we're not doing it. Do we need to do it, or do we need to not do it and take it out?
Right.
Okay, so I'll just,
I think his sense was that he would have liked to have taken it out. That was the sense I got from the previous conversation.
All right, I'll write that down, I'll talk to him.
Okay. Any other feedback from any other committees that anyone has talked about? I didn't do this at the beginning, I should welcome Tanner Cole, who is the representative from the planning board. So replacing Michael Reyes Jeffers. So,
Thank you.
he got a slew of
Better late than never.
eight emails that you all got at the beginning of what other towns have done, what this state has done, other things like that. So I don't know if you get a chance to read them all, but it's good background. You may want to look at some of the meetings. We're at a very good place right now with where we've come for the town charter, simplifying the things that we've gone on last year.
At least you got the color-coded version of the chart.
Yes.
That makes
It's a better place to start.
It does.
I was going to go over what council. So the discussion that we had about the second regular meeting in the fall, and that our concern about not implicating the special town meeting requirements, and as he noted, the 2/3 vote requirement, that is in a special town meeting for financial articles. And our theory, I think, is that if you have a regular meeting in the spring and a regular meeting in the fall, for that regular second meeting, we weren't going to have the extra things required for that, or the extra requirements to have more requirements for signatures and other things like that, because it was a standing meeting. For any other special, all the special is still there. He suggested, and I will forward this to whoever we end up having the new chair, you could state all provisions of the Mass General laws or the regulations promulgated thereunder applicable to annual town meetings shall, insofar as practical, apply to the second town meeting annually held in October or November, and not those provisions applicable to special town meetings. So that's what we wanted. We wanted language that would make it clear that this is not a second annual, and it's not a regular special. We're trying to make it clear of what is actually going to happen. So we'll have that.
We could call it the planning board's town meeting.
That's right. That's right. All the zoning articles. But only if they promise not to bring any zoning articles in the spring. But anyway.
Good luck.
That's right, good luck. And then he has some...
Just a question.
Yeah.
If we were to have a third meeting that was truly a special, is the requirements for different number of signatures and different 2/3 vote and all that stuff, is that a charter issue or is it an MGL issue?
The 2/3 vote at the special is in
The bylaw.
the bylaw.
Bylaw.
So we could get rid of that if the town wanted to get rid of the bylaw. The number of signatures
Well, that's Mass General laws.
Is for the warrant.
determines-
Yep.
for the special, yeah.
But it's different for special than annual.
Right.
Yes.
So this would say for the second meeting.
I understand that. I'm
Okay.
just saying, if you really have a special,
Yeah,
is the requirement for the different signatures then?
that's from state law.
That's state law.
Yeah.
And typically, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to have one unless
Right.
a majority, unless you have enough signatures to force it.
Yeah.
That was just for my
Yeah.
education. Thank you.
Because currently, special, you would have to have 200 signatures to call a special, and you have to have 100 signatures to put on an article that the selectmen don't want to put on, or don't do on their own. Annual town meeting is that annual town meeting, you don't have signatures to get it done, because it's been happening, and it only requires 10 signatures to get an article. So that's the difference. And then the only other thing town council had is some discussion items on the appointment process, which we already talked about. So that's it from town council. When you get to the point where you feel you've had the first public hearing, and it doesn't look like there's going to be major changes, or if there is a proposed major change, that's when I would suggest that then go to town council for final review before the next hearing. Then you can present the proposed changes at that point. So, draft charter, vote if necessary. The one thing I would actually probably call for the vote is discussion about the proposed minimum number of votes for a write-in candidate where there is not a person on the ballot. And I'll just read that again. This is what town council had added some of the additional language. So no person who is a write-in candidate for election to town office, if no candidate's name is printed on the ballot, therefore, shall be deemed to be elected unless they receive a number of votes at least equal to the number of signatures which would be required by law to place their name on the ballot at such election as a candidate aforesaid. For any town office with multiple vacancies, the foregoing restrictions shall apply unless the number of candidate names printed on the ballot is equal to or greater than the number of vacancies. And I don't know what the the signature count is based on the gubernatorial election, and the most recent gubernatorial election had really big turnouts, so the number may change. But before that, the signature requirement was 42. So this would say that if somebody is a write-in with his no name on there, nobody took out papers, nobody was nominated at the caucus, they would have to get at least 42 votes in order to be elected. If they received 41, it would be deemed vacant, and at that point, the board that they were running for and the Board of Selectmen would have a joint meeting, and the majority of all those members would appoint a person for that vacancy until the next election.
So, we'd like to vote on that.
Yeah, so-
I make a motion that we accept the new drafted language as written.
Second. Any further discussion?
Now we can discuss it.
Yeah, how do we calculate what the new requirement is?
So it will automatically happen as a result of the number of votes cast in Lunenburg for the gubernatorial election, and it automatically triggers what that requirement is. So that's what this,
So presumably, we should know what that number is.
Well, we should now, but that number could change every few years.
it will-
It just automatically
Understood.
changes.
But the 42 was prior to
Right.
this election,
yeah.
and
So-
with the high turnout, it's going to be a higher number now.
But we don't have a number in the charter.
So, but what the
understand.
question becomes is that, say it turns out to be 200, it probably won't be, but I don't know. Do you still feel comfortable with requiring 200 votes in order to be counted?
Is that the same number that's required to get on the ballot without the caucus?
Right.
So it
I don't have a problem.
So it's going to be the same number as the caucus anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
And if no one votes in the next gubernatorial, then the number goes down to 12.
Right.
You know, whatever. It's going to go back and forth. So this, I think, we wanted to put this in so that someone with one vote, so to speak, you know, I write myself in,
Right.
now I'm a selectman.
I'd feel more comfortable with a set figure. Just because it'll go up and down. Okay, so I would have been elected if, you know, it only required, 27 votes, but I won't...
But it's a wonderful
because
barometer of the
57.
town, if only 10% of the town votes.
You see, I'm okay with it because if you're going to take out nomination papers, you have to get this number, whatever the number is. And we're saying, okay, you got to do the work to get that. We want you to get the work to be nominated, to be elected. That's what this whole theory is that whatever that number goes up or down, you know at the time of the election, you're going to have to get a number of votes. And if you're going to run, you really need to get people to vote for you. And don't just get, well, I'm going to have 5 people vote for me. That's what the theory of this is.
And then basically, the appointment to an elected position becomes the sole responsibility of the Board of Selectmen and not the responsibility, the co-responsibility of the Board of Selectmen with whatever the
No,
vacancy was.
it is the selectmen and the committee that the vacancy's on.
I guess I have 2 questions. One is, when has this ever happened? I can't recall anyone being elected with 1 vote.
Joe, no, not 5. Troy Daniels to the sewer and to the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Joe Anderson to the sewer, less than 10 votes to that.
Yeah.
Town auditor, back when I was treasurer collector before they had a separate town accountant, the town auditor was elected with 5 votes.
But what I'm saying, where it was a problem, like, you need to fill these vacancies anyway, correct?
That's a different discussion. So
Right,
is
the
there a
only
problem with
person
with those people who got elected? Some people might say yes, because they didn't like what they did once they got on the board.
See, now I look at it as, I got 41 votes. So now I go to the planning board and the selectmen in their meeting and say, look, I got 41 votes. I think I'm a serious candidate. You put your name in. So it's just to me, it's like a double check to make sure that the person is actually viable for the position or has the expertise or whatever needed for that particular position. Because I could get 10 people to write your name down just for fun,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and you're like,
And
I
if
don't
I'm
want this
willing to
job,
serve,
you know.
I mean, we have vacancies left and right, so anything that I see that puts more hurdles in people's way, and I'm pretty sure you'd be in a time constraint too, in that, you know, if I wanted to pull papers, there's a deadline. If I decide the day after, say the deadline's, you know, Friday at 4 PM while town hall's closed, I want to pull papers, I can't pull papers.
Your option is to run. Yep.
Yeah.
There's kind of two responses to that. One is, if there's a name on the ballot, this doesn't apply. So it's not for a second or third candidate, it's for one where nobody's there, and nobody's campaigned supposedly, I mean, you don't know that for sure, but, and I go in and as a joke or as a punishment, I try to put you on a board that may be less attractive.
Yeah.
Now, you always have the right to turn it down. That's one frame of reference. The other is, what we're talking about voting right here, right now, is whether we put it on the charter warrant article, and then we let the town decide whether they want to do it or not. Right, we made an agreement, just historically, we made an agreement in the beginning that we wouldn't put anything on there unless we agreed, at least a majority, supermajority, that we felt it was at least worth having that discussion.
And since this is in red, it is considered controversial, not this high controversy, that this would be put as a separate article,
Okay.
so that town would vote yes or no on this one, because it is enough of a change that we want it to be.
Yeah.
So it would not make the whole charter go down if somebody didn't like that part.
So then should we then just say that rather than we're voting it into the charter, we're basically voting it onto the
Warrant.
selection?
Well, I had a question on that.
Yeah.
So what-
As long as we're in discussion on this,
Yep.
broader question. If we vote to put it in there, are we de facto recommending it?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
So the fact is, you really should vote on putting it in the charter. Our presentation is how you're going to package it for town meeting, but you're saying, all things equal, we want this as the charter.
Or in our research and our discussions, we feel this is in the best interest of the town to include this change or to delete something or whatever.
Right. So, for instance, at our last meeting, we voted not to move forward with ranked choice voting.
Right, we're not even doing this is the pros and this is the cons. What we voted to not do was bring it to the town meeting to say, you guys want it or not?
So-
That's really what we voted to do.
Right, we said, and I would say because the people, well, everybody has a different way of their voting. I voted against it because I was thinking it's not time yet for Lunenburg.
Right.
Not that I didn't want them to have a vote on it. So I would not recommend it as part of the charter.
Right.
So I would suggest that the vote here is to say, do we support this to be included in the charter, assuming the town meeting votes on it? So, although, go ahead.
Okay, no, it's okay. Yeah, because I mean, there's still a piece of me that almost thinks that it's premature just because I'd like to see the pro and the con, and basically, although we have had the pro and the con, so I suppose that, yeah, I can vote, go ahead.
Okay. The other thing I would say is that we can vote, and then we will charge somebody to talk to the town clerk to find out what is that number now for the signature, and we can bring it back to the next meeting. So we actually find out, and it's like, oh my God, I didn't want that number, or whatever, and you can come back to it. But all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. So Tanner and Terry, no. Everyone else, yes, with Jim and Heather not here.
So we'll have to vote again. Because that's not six.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right.
So this is why I'm on the Finance Committee.
Thank you very much for keeping us honest.
I can count to six.
Okay, so therefore, it did not pass according to our rules because it did not achieve a supermajority. So therefore, this will need to come back for future meeting, assuming we want to.
I will state that part of the reason why I'm going to say no is that I still, rather than tying it to a previous election, if we tied it to a particular number, I might be more open to it. But I still go with I think, I may still vote no, but
Okay.
I don't like the unknown.
So who can talk to the town clerk to find out what is the current number as a result of the last election,
Before the next meeting?
before the next meeting?
Heather, could you talk to the town clerk?
Let's not give that a minute.
Oh, all right.
Okay, so Jamie's got to find that out and report back. Okay. I think that was the only other one that we hadn't taken a position on, because we already decided we were not going to go for representative town meeting. We already decided we were not going to do term limits. We recently decided not to move forward with ranked choice voting. So I think that's where you are. I would suggest that once the selectmen replace me on this point, you will have had Tanner and my replacement as two new people. We've taken various positions with the two new school representatives to get their input, and it really didn't change much on the positions that we previously take. So you may want to go through and take a vote again based on what's going on all the different positions, because that could change if it didn't have the supermajority. So the naming of the select board, moving some of the other positions, anything that's controversial, I mean, even anything that's not controversial, you want to go through it. But the elected or appointed town clerk, whether you'll still have the same number of positions for or against something. The next thing was review and finalize schedule, which I did not send out a schedule. But what do people think about a public
We
hearing?
didn't send out a new one, but we had one from before, right? Didn't we?
So the trouble with a December 12th hearing is that we haven't started publicizing. So the question, although we did publicize it to 182 people who showed up at the special town meeting, we had the report there on that part. So that's a certain amount of part. It's on the town website at the moment.
But I think there's a legal requirement for public hearings.
Well, this one wouldn't probably have to be a true public hearing with that notice. I think the final one would have to. But the reason it's the legal requirements is that you need to have enough notice process. And even if we tried to get something in, today's Wednesday, so we've already missed the ledger for this week, is, that would just be a Friday the 7th ledger notice for the following Wednesday the 12th. That doesn't quite feel right. And December 26th is probably not a good day for the following year.
I don't think I'll be here.
And that brings us to January 9th.
January 9th.
I think we could, well, no, actually, I'm not sure that we could do December 13th, because the other thing that's still missing is the pro-con discussion, and I'm thinking that it would be, and then we're going to have to reset those, because
I think
we had assigned a lot to Michael, and he's not here. So,
Michael volunteered though.
no, actually, then when he wasn't here, I think we volunteered him for...
Well, he had agreed to do one of the pro or con
Right.
positions, so
Right.
I think that you probably need to reset and discuss.
Yeah.
I think the January 9th is possible to do. What you could do is start publicizing the January 9th event and say, look at what's on the website at the moment, and then at your next meeting,
I'll update it.
on the 12th, actually take some votes again to say, are we still on this current version? Is it still okay? Just go through it all again.
Right. And then actually, if on December 12th, we also do some of the pro-con assignments to have some of that stuff written up and see who falls where on. Because we're going to have to discuss the whole thing all over again, so.
Within the week, we publicized we're going to do a January 9th, and that we're going to meet on the 12th for the committee to go over.
What you really want to do is finalize your current version, knowing that you can change it based on input from the public hearing and anything that's come up in between. So for instance, the Cemetery Commission talked about some things tonight. If you're not ready to make the change yet because there's still work to be done, you could still have the hearing on January 9th saying there may be some additional language that may change as a result of the discussions with the Cemetery Commission. And you just put it out there on that hearing saying this is still coming.
And then we have some of that for the December 12th meeting.
Yeah.
And my concern is, what happened last year, we had some snow days and all that, and everything just gets out of kilter, and there's no time to actually go through and do things. So I like meeting on January 9th, but at the same time, we should be telling people that on the 12th, we're going to go through the entire document.
December 12th.
December 12th. Because even the Cemetery Commission only meets once a month. You know, some of these commissions only meet once a month, so that they know on the 12th we're going to be meeting to finalize something. They have till January 9th, but it's going to be really hard. Anything that really needs to be changed really should be done before the 9th. And then it's just the picky, you know, finalizing little things here or deciding that, no, we're not going to do X or Y.
Or because you have time to be before the May town meeting, you could say, we are not ready for the January 9th meeting to be finalized on this topic.
Right.
We're going to go into the
No,
hearing and
yeah.
do it without that topic, and then say we're going to now make that change in January or February, and then present it at the next public hearing.
Right. But yes, but I want to make sure people don't go, February. I'll wait till February. Because then what happens is you get lots of people wanting to make significant changes, possibly, with no time to research and make sure that everything is accurate.
So we should let people know now's the time to get it to us early.
Major changes.
Yeah,
Major changes should be gotten to us for the January 9th public, before the January 9th public hearing.
Or at the January 9th.
Or at the January, before or at. Because then we're going to run out of time. Because there's only one more meeting in January, then there's two in February, and now we're in March. And we really have to have that version done by March, so that we can meet the deadlines for warrants and all that.
And remember, just because somebody brings something to you does not mean you have to act on it.
Right.
So,
But we need to give people time to bring it to us.
and I think the only people that are currently proposing any changes is cemetery, possibly park,
Is that it?
and the internal working as far as the appointment deadline process.
And definition of weeks. One of Tim's other thing was on that week, just so you know, special meeting shall be called within a week at one point. In 7.8, it says special meeting shall be called within a week. So that was another example of what he said, is that 5 business days, 7 calendar days, 7 business days, you know, definition of a week. So just to emphasize that throughout the document, we need to have either clean up each one or have a definition at the beginning, this is what a week is, a month is, or whatever.
And that's why under agendas, we clarified it based on the current open meeting law. Except an emergency, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal
Oh, we
holidays.
did change it.
Yeah, we did change
Okay,
it.
then the version we were looking at didn't have that change.
Okay.
I apologize.
Okay.
I brought the wrong one.
Okay,
There's so many versions.
Public hearing on January 9th, work session December 12th with votes. So revote the major items. You probably don't need to revote typographic parts, but you know, the major items to get to the supermajority, and then assign pro, con for the January 9th. Ideally, you'd want to have the pro-con statements available to the public before the January 9th hearing, so they can look at it.
Yep.
That one at least, you know, a few days before, but you could give the notice far in advance, saying there's going to be a hearing, the draft's going to be publicized, other things like that. The other thing I did was put the charter, draft charter, and the report from town meeting at the library, the town clerk, and senior center. So it becomes publicly available. Anything else on the schedule?
Where, and how do we book January 9th? Sorry if I'm...
No, that's good. So somebody should talk to, well, Elaine, the question becomes, you want to have, if it's going to be the public hearing, you want to have a place, preferably Town Hall, but that date is also the date of the Zoning Board of Appeals, so if they have a hearing, you may have to have a meeting here and publicize it here, or that type of thing. So the next...
So what's the process of doing that?
So the new chair responsibility, make sure that they set up that hearing.
Okay. I'm just trying to
No,
fill
it's
in some
important.
blanks
It's
because
important, right?
in groups that I've worked with, if you're not kept to the grindstone, it takes forever. And we're already in our second year.
So that brings us to the next thing, select the new chair. So as was announced, this is my last meeting on the Charter Review Committee. The end of this month is the end of my time on the Board of Selectmen. It has been a pleasure working with all of you. It's been fascinating looking at things, what we're not doing right. And it's like, oh, we should have been doing that all along. So that's why you do it. That's why there's a provision to actually go back and make sure it's the right thing and learn it. And there's been lots of public involvement of the hearing process, and ironically, proposing major changes to try to clarify that didn't clarify actually brought out a lot of people and saying that we don't like what you're doing, and that's good. So now we can focus on, okay, all the other simpler things, that'll be fine. All the different controversial ones, okay, the town will get a chance to vote on those, and you go forward.
Yeah, because when we started, we thought it was all or nothing.
Right.
Now we understand that
So
we
it's
can break
all-
it down. Keep it to as few as possible.
Yeah. It's all or nothing if you have an elected charter commission. That's where that process came from the beginning. The first charter that was defeated, that was elected. The second charter that was approved was elected. And then everybody believed that was the same process when it was appointed under the process of the charter. So that's why it was different.
Good to know.
So,
I move that we vote Mark Erickson as our new chair.
Decline. Sorry.
That was almost better.
I was afraid that might happen. No,
Well prepared.
In all seriousness, I really, I'm not in a position to do that right now. I do have some other responsibilities. I can't. I'm sorry.
the other option you have is to postpone action on this until Heather and Jim are here and the new appointee from the selectmen are here. And that may be more appropriate, which then would say, you as vice chair of the committee will run the next meeting and sort of set up the hearing dates and make sure things get done.
Well, we could do that, or we could see if, like if I nominate, Steve Archambault, if he says he
Oh,
decides to.
no, I can't. I have many other obligations.
Okay. All right.
I thought about it, though.
Did you?
I didn't think about it.
Any other volunteers?
What do you think about it?
No.
See, because I'm going to decline it too if anybody wants to nominate me. And I believe that it probably shouldn't be a selectman. I think Bob was an exception because of his history with the town and his knowledge, and I think he was an excellent chair. But I would prefer that the chair of this committee not be a selectman. That's my personal opinion.
I would prefer at this point that it be anybody that wants to do it. We're running out of
Well-
options. Tanner's just brand new, and he's just looking
No.
scared.
The issue is
headlights.
there's a lot of, I don't want to say paperwork, but there are legal things.
But that's what town council's for. I did some stuff because I have a legal background, but we're at a point now where you can say, what do we want to do? And then you can go to town council, write it for us so we can do what we want to do, and it comes back and you say, I don't understand what you wrote, it's too legalese. Go back and turn it into a little bit more English, and then come back, and then you all vote it. So that shouldn't throw you off. You have a town manager who knows a lot of things that's going on. You have a town council that knows what's going on. So I think You
I would motion that we postpone the chair till the next meeting, because we really do need to have a full board to do that, and I agree with you.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. So next meeting is December 12th, 7 PM. And
So, for the December 12th meeting, you're going to send out minutes then as vice chair?
I'll
elect,
have minutes from tonight's meeting.
Right, but agenda, who's going to do the agenda? You'll do the agenda. I just want to make sure we don't run into I thought you were doing the agenda, I thought you were, now we can't meet. And now January 9th becomes moot. All right, so you're going to do the agenda. What other legally do we need to do for that meeting?
it will be adopting the minutes of this meeting and the one on the 24th, which will be sent out before then.
Okay.
There's nothing else that we need to do before then, other
To
than
create that meeting so that we don't have it.
get the location, that's it.
We have, no, December 12th,
But
we're going to...
January 9th, you can
January
have
9th,
location.
we need a location.
So
All right. So, who's in charge of locations?
It depends on what location we end up with. If we have to come here, then we would go through Cape Burnham.
Yeah, okay.
I will function as the chair until we elect another one.
I just want to
No
make sure...
longer than the end of the meeting on
The 12th.
12th of December.
Okay. But you see what I'm getting at? I don't want us to run into a
I'll take
legal
care of it.
issue.
I'll take care of it.
And then, wow, we thought of that.
Yeah.
Now we're stuck and we can't do anything.
The good thing is that this public hearing doesn't have to be a legal public hearing.
Right. Well, yes, but the 12th, I want to make sure we have the 12th, because we'll have the new select person,
And the rest
or
of the members.
men, whatever, and we'll hopefully have the two school
Or
committees.
select board, you don't have to worry about it. But that's just my party.
Right. But,
You know how I voted.
but that way there, at that point, we'll have a full, that's where we need to really, everyone needs to be here for that one, so that we can have a full committee and we can go forward and then do whatever. All right.
Any other public comments from the public?
Sure, I have a public comment, Katie Adams, Williams Drive, for the minimum number of write-in votes. And I'm going to agree with Terry that a number should be set if you adopt such a rule, which I'm not even sure I'd be in favor of just as a citizen. For example, if the number went as high as 70 or 80 that you needed to achieve to win a write-in, that's a lot of votes to put somebody in a position. Meanwhile, let's say the vacancy was on planning and somebody got 50 votes, so it didn't meet the requirement of 70. Now that goes to an appointment, which is 9 people's voices. If you're dealing with a full BOS and a full 4 planning board members. So now 9 people decide who gets to have a position, when 50 people or 60 or however many people came out to say who they wanted to see in that position. And there's a huge discrepancy between 9 people deciding something, 60 or 65 people, and a write-in is more work. So I think if you got 65 people out, then you really have accomplished something. So if you set a number like 10, then you're taking care of that situation where you're saying, hey, if only 5 people come out, we want to make sure that we have an organized, good outcome, because otherwise you're handing it to 9 people. And why, in my mind, with government always being with the people, why would the 9 people serving on the boards have a more valid voice than 65 people in the town? So I think setting the number creates a better circumstance than just arbitrarily eliminating somebody because they won and we want to tell them they didn't.
Okay. Any other public comment? Any other comments from the committee?
No, it's been great having you.
Just want to thank you again, Bob, for your leadership, especially on this group.
Yeah, learned a lot.
Yeah, it's been fun. I've learned a lot, you know, I thought I knew a lot of stuff, and it's like, I never knew that was there. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned at 8:06 PM.